Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Hotline League. It is a banger because we have officially games to talk about. It has been months since we've been able to talk about any game in which a North American team has played, and I am so happy to be able to do so finally. I don't know, Cubby, I mean, it's got to feel really good for you to be back too, right?
Yeah, got the VOD reviews wrapped today. Getting those on YouTube, before the show goes on. Definitely not during. I was joined by Kangas, the newest member of the LTA broadcast for that, and a common guest of the show. But yeah, I mean, it was uh, quite the eventful day. I will say that my personal day was a lot more eventful than what LTAN had in store for the first weekend, as it was 4-2-0s with no upsets. But I'm sure we'll get into that as the calls come on too. And I noticed
Yeah,
that you're rocking the new merch.
yes, I should say that. So
Are you a fan?
well, we should talk about the fact. I mean, maybe it's like for a call or something that will come up later
Mhm.
in the show. But like, I don't know if people notice this, but well, I guess Cubby actually somebody who will be undisclosed, not Mark, but somebody who works on the LTA, messaged me about this deal that they were doing, and they said I listened to Cubby, and they revealed that they were selling LTA was selling a hat for $10 or a T-shirt for $10, or you could get both for $16, which would come with a tiny little Poro plushie. And I mean, that first off, that's just a steal. I would
Yeah.
have been remiss if I did not purchase the T-shirt. I've been told every woman I've ever dated has told me I shouldn't wear hats when I put one on, but I did buy
I
the
mean, you do
T-shirt.
have you got the flow going on.
Yeah,
Let's be honest,
well, I
Travis.
don't
It's
think that's
nice.
why they say it, but I
I think it is.
I am I am rocking the shirt, and it's pretty cool. And they said I listened to Cubby when they sent me this shout out to the LTA North tee and hat thing. So you in the past, I think even recently, you were talking about them doing merch and sort of embracing that, and it's cool to see that they're doing that type of thing. So
That's
uh,
good.
obviously they're not making money on that at all. I think they're just doing it to promote and get people to become fans. I'm going to run a poll right now that says, did you watch a single LTA game this weekend? This is at the request of PP Doc
I
in the
believe it's
chat.
LTA South specifically though that they're requesting.
Oh, it's LTA South? Is that what PP Doc was
Yes.
saying?
Yes.
All right. I will do that. Yes,
But you can
LTA
do
South.
LTA just in general. I mean, I would hope that the majority of our viewers did tune in,
I
as
put
it has been
South
a long
over
time
on
since it has
Twitch.
been able.
So I won't do it on YouTube because the YouTube people tend to be a little sleepy.
I did
But
catch LTA South. I just do want to throw that out there. Not just through Captain Flowers, who got the co-stream, or Dom, who appears to be the official co-streamer for LTA South, but also there is an unofficial broadcast that features a lot of these CB Law unofficial English folks from the past year, so they know the teams a little bit. And I did promote that stream on my Twitter. If anyone wants to check it out, it is just at hashtag LTA South.
yeah.
So I would recommend dropping them a follow if you enjoy official broadcast, as I do know that they know the teams over there. And I will say that honestly, the most hype matchup, probably just in general, I don't know the teams that well, just based on orgs, Pain versus Loud, it was the kickoff.
Yeah.
So I did tune in for that because Pain is a solid team.
Well, of those that voted, it looks like it's a slightly more yes than no. So looks
That's
like
good.
some folks at least are going out and checking LTA South to see what's up. But this episode is going to be primarily about LTA North. And we did have, as you mentioned, some stompy games, but I think the vibes were really good this weekend. I felt really good about the broadcast. I felt like they were doing some really cool things. I like that they are integrating more storytelling into the sort of lower part of the stream over the scoreboard whenever it's the start of the
Yeah,
show. Yeah,
that
there's
was
just a lot of cool stuff.
definitely something they pushed forward last year.
Yeah.
And I appreciated some of the graphics they were running. Like they had one. I know that the Surdy Impact one got memed a little bit because they were like,
Oh,
"Oh,
did
he's
it? Yeah.
got more achievements, in tier 2." But I thought they actually did a really nice job of selling Surdy and his experience, like to make it to LCS, not just his solo queue experience. I do think that Surdy's an easier story, but highlighting the fact that he did win NACL and CLAW, which I think is a really big deal for anyone that's trying to make it. Like Surdy was someone where it's like hit the point where he can't accomplish anything else before LTA North. So I'm glad that they did a good job of at least trying to sell that with some of the graphics they had. Yeah, that was good. And Surdy played really well, so I was happy about that.
Yeah. No, I thought
Mhm.
the vibes were really good in the studio. Things were really cool. It was packed, I think, the whole weekend. There was rain, unfortunately. I mean, fortunately for LA, because we really need rain. But there was, for the first time in months and months and months, kind of a drought-ending rain that hit, which was unfortunate for the tailgate, especially on Sunday. Whenever
We really needed the rain though.
it was, yeah, we
So
did, it would have been
yeah,
nice if it had been at a different time than
I know.
the tailgate.
Yeah,
But it was really good there in person. I had a great time. I did some
that's
interviews, which
good.
will hopefully get up on the YouTube channel soon. A little delayed because we had some staffing issues this weekend. But other than that, it was good. So do want to give a big shout out to NZXT for sponsoring the show. It's great to have them on board as always. We'll talk more about them later on. I'll also be sticking around after stream to continue my play of Idol Slayer, who's sponsoring not the show necessarily, but the part afterwards. And I do want to give them a shout out. So thank you to Idol Slayer for sponsoring the stream after the show. Cubby, any standout moments, anything that was particularly cool for you this weekend that you saw?
Um, I really feel like LTA North in this split, it feels like I'm watching F1
Okay.
because I did a power rankings channel, which I put up on your channel. Thanks for giving that one a
Yeah, Power
home. And
Rangers
shout out to
video. Yeah.
Drew. And also everyone like who did tune in for the reaction to it, as it was generally positive. So I appreciate that. And not just because people were like, oh, I feel like it was close to mine, because I couldn't give more or less of a fuck if my tier list was close to mine. I just hope that it's accurate based on what I think my criteria is. Anyway, um, the way that I categorized it is that I had 2 teams in 4 different tiers. And part of my criteria for that was whether or not I felt like a team could jump up 2 tiers or not, which really went into how I placed it, right? So, for example, FlyQuest and TL are my 2 top teams. So I'm like, okay, what are the odds that these teams bottom 4? Not much. I feel pretty confident putting them in the top tier. C9 versus 100. Could they win? Yes. Do I think they bottom 2? No. Okay, that's my next tier. Tier after that, Dig and SR. Do I feel like Dig and SR could maybe top 4? Yeah, I had Dig higher odds, which not many other folks had, but that was kind of like my logic, right? Can they win? Probably not. And then LYON and DSG. And when it comes to F1, a lot of the times the way that you finish placement wise is just based on how fast your car is and the track. And so I feel like in F1, there is a lot less parity. Because if you're historically, Haas, you're fighting to just be on the grid and you're happy to be there. Whereas historically, if you're Red Bull, your second driver is the one that's taking a lot of top 2s and a couple wins because your car is just really fast. We didn't get any surprises in LTA North for week 1. And I feel like moving forward for split 1, I don't expect too many surprises. I feel like the way that, a lot of people had teams going in with a clear top 2, you could flip where you had C9 and 100 Thieves next. And then it was probably a lot of folks had SR and then the rest. I had Dig and then the rest. It feels like that's just what we're going to get. So no, I didn't get a lot of surprises. I think the biggest surprise was that besides Otacon being in the Dragon Bar, I actually really, 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 really like the new UI that they have for this stream. And I thought that looked really good.
Yeah, I agree with the Otacon thing.
Yeah.
It was funny whenever even Captain Flowers was like, "Oh, that's not an Infernal Dragon. I guess it's Otacon."
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think the UI is pretty good. So it sounds like that was your thing that excited you this weekend was the UI updates to the broadcast.
The UI pleasantly surprised me, much more so than Surdy playing well in his games, because Surdy is good.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that some fans were pleasantly surprised by that, because I think he's going to be a good player for years to come. So that made me happy. But yeah, besides that, nothing else. What about you, Travis? You get any surprises for the kickoff? Anything that you really enjoyed?
I think I am surprised, and I wonder how much look, I get that this was probably a bit of a conversation from the Europe side anyway, but I feel as though having Papa Smithy and Jack and people in the chat last week, whenever we had the call about people wanting, oh, we need to stream SCRIMS, and it seemed to like spark a conversation from ownership in the chat. And so I was surprised when Whippo and FlyQuest seem to be like, we are now going to presidentially campaign for SCRIMS. It's like, my opponents are too afraid to scrim. What are they hiding? I'm like, probably their strategies. That's how it works. like,
They used what we call, or what they call in politics, Travis, the bully pulpit.
yes,
Yes, very much so. Which
yeah.
I thought was entertaining. So that's good.
I did talk to a pro player in one of my interviews. I'll wait until it's out for people to see who and what that was, but they were kind of like, "Hey, that's actually probably not making it more likely that we stream scrims, because now it becomes like a weird ego thing where they're out there being like, 'You guys suck. No one will stream against us.'" And it's like, okay, that doesn't really encourage us to do it. It doesn't motivate,
Yeah.
at least I guess, some of the pros to
Well, I'm
want to
glad that they
participate.
feel like, their egos were wounded, when I think the real point is that FlyQuest feels like they're shitting on everyone in the Rift, which
Yeah.
should probably, wound your ego more. But glad that someone highlighted the fact that, that might impact scrims as well, even if I
Yeah.
disagree with that logic. But
I hope
yeah.
that all the people, because I'm seeing in chat right now, especially over in Twitch chat, people saying things like, "Oh, they don't want to be exposed for being lazy and entering scrims," or they, mocking people about what was said on pros, or there's no good reason not to stream scrims. I know we took a call about it last week, but I think because it's popped off so much, I hope at least one of
There's
these
a call.
people or somebody similar calls in with a
That
streaming scrims take.
that's the most popular take we have in the tank, and we'll probably just take that call first.
Yeah, I think we can take a
Um,
couple even, because
so yeah.
I don't know. I think it's kind of I'm surprised at how, I don't know. I guess it's just the way it works with the league community, where they kind of have this like one track mind, where they are like, "Oh, we've all decided this is the thing, and now it's a group think, and now there's no nuance to the conversation or whatever." And I don't know. I have mixed
Don't
feelings
worry.
about it, but we
There's a
can
lot of
get into it.
takes. There's a lot of takes about Fearless and the lack of impact that Fearless had, which, I hate
Yes.
to say that I was right, but maybe the caster that did work with that for an entire year had a couple good ideas. So
Yeah.
I'm a little bit bummed that fans see backlash, even if I do feel like Fearless didn't have the impact that a lot of people thought it would. But like for me, I'm not too surprised.
Yeah.
Again, the way that I treat this split, it feels like a novelty split. And I think if fans get on board with that, then a lot of things that they had beef with this week are actually fun. Like Fearless Draft not having a giant impact, or T1 subbing in a player, or like stuff like that. Again, if you look at this as a novelty split for split one, I think a lot of things
Or like
make
a
more
warm
sense.
up split even.
Yeah, it does feel like the lock-in again. It's not spring. It's worse than spring. It's split one. It's
Yeah.
spring is split two. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like Fearless made it the best three is a little bit better from chat. I'm glad that they felt that way, because I feel like the sentiment right now in Fearless is like, oh, I thought it would have an impact, and it really didn't. That's just how many champions are in league now. It really only has an impact in best of fives. So yeah.
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 Please, please, please go watch, if you haven't yet, my surprise test that I put out around pro players, me asking the LTA pros if they know anything about the format. It is maybe the funniest that I've ever released. It is so, so funny. Sven learning about hemispheres. Like, it is wild. And I think a lot of people who don't understand how the formats work learn a lot from that video. So I'm a little disappointed it didn't perform better. I think maybe just unfortunately nowadays on YouTube, it doesn't matter how good the content is if the hook is not there. And I think some people are like, a format video, why would I click this? But it is really I think it's the funniest I've ever done. So please, if you're listening to this after the fact or whatever, you listen to the VOD, please pause this, go watch that video, because it's pretty good, and also I think relevant for some of the conversations we'll have here about format stuff. So either way, do we want to get into? Oh, Cloud9 says, Travis, you are on the Cloud9 TV right now. Thank God, I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting. You know what the big thing was? Last night we were at Team Liquid after the games, and we did a Innistrad draft with the esports and gaming magic group, bunch of cool people, Riot
Mm-hmm.
people, teams, folks, coaches, etc. And Nara was there, and I'm wondering when Cloud9 is going to host the Magic the Gathering group at their practice facility, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe even disguised host. When are we going to be at the DSG facility?
You just
That
want to go to
video,
this
by the way, was
guy's
great.
house? That video was funny. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. If
Yeah.
people haven't seen that, that's also a banger. So, all right,
Um,
Cubby, you want to get into calls? How do you want to explain how this works if anybody's
yeah, let's
stumbling
do
into
it.
this for the first time?
We have a few takes so far, but if you guys want to have your take, potentially be a part of the show, you got to join the Discord, discord.gg/Travis. Drop your tank. take in either pleb topics or subtopics at me, at Cubby. And if your take's good, I'll drag you in the waiting room, and then we'll go from there. So far, we've got 4 in the tank. Definitely room for more tonight. Expecting about a 2-hour episode. I know we're guestless, but sometimes Travis and I like to rant and ramble. We'll see
Yeah.
if that happens.
And just to that point, because I see somebody in YouTube wrote, "Bro, no pro player again." I promise you, folks, that I am reaching out to pros. I would love to have them on. I've reached out to a couple different teams, and I think what is happening, like in their defense, is that a lot of people are doing other things tonight. So I heard that, for instance, Team Liquid is having a team dinner. I know that Disguised Toast's team, or I just keep calling it Disguised Toast, DSG, is doing like a team activity together as well, like an escape room or something. I've heard, I reach out to a lot of folks, and folks are often busy on Monday nights, so I don't think it's always that. I do know there are some pro players who have just been like, I don't ever feel like doing the show, which is unfortunate because I do think it would be nice. I would love, in this day and age, when we're talking about, hey, we should stream scrims to build notoriety and fandom and all that stuff, if pros were as willing to come on the show as they were in the past. But I don't know. You can't always force people to come on the show.
It's just me, Travis. You should blame me and scapegoat me.
Yeah.
They don't want to. They think I'm a noob, and they don't want to talk to me.
I don't think it's that. I think it's just I think it's that pros don't always want to do something unless they're being forced to by their team. But we'll I'll keep asking, and hopefully soon we'll get some folks on. But I don't want to be. By the way, we've had some amazing guests on recently with Raz and Kangas and other fantastic folks. So I'm hopeful that we'll get some more people on.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Papa Smithy said Busio was until he heard Cubby was on the show, and then it's over. I did reach out to FlyQuest, but I guess I won't disclose why they couldn't make it. But they did have a decent answer. They did have a decent answer. So hopefully we get something soon. All right.
Nice.
Thanks again for Cubby explaining how the show works and how people call in. Are we still looking for callers? It looks like we have a few. Oh, did we lose Cubby? Oh, Cubby went to the other channel to go grab somebody. He's already on it. We're going to shout out some people who subbed. Brewy, thank you. Nuclei for the 55 months. Gerg, the Catman, Jammin TST for just over 2 years. Steel Cam, and Jetty Vash. Thanks everybody for the subs. Really appreciate it. If anybody else has a free sub that they get through Prime or otherwise, it's always really appreciated. Icebreaker's here. Icebreaker, where are you calling from?
Hey, I'm calling from Indianapolis, Indiana.
Indianapolis, Indiana. What do you want to talk about on the show?
Yeah, so I believe I'm being pulled as the streaming scrims take.
We're kicking it off already.
Yeah, I'll be honest. So I've been watching some of the Los Ratones content, and I'm also a fan of the NFL. I honestly think that pretty much every team should be tripping over themselves to either work with FlyQuest or even just put out some sort of streamed scrim content. It doesn't have to be, if they're all worried about leaking strats or everything, like you have a coaching staff, you can structure something that isn't going to leak things to the public or other teams. But just to put into perspective why I think that. So the LTA North week 1 peak viewership this year was about 150K. Last year, LCS Spring 2024 was peaked at about 190. LTA South and CV LOL, the same peaks, were about 250K each. And NLC, the league where Los Ratones play, its highest peak before that was, I believe, I don't actually know, but it was a spring finals, and they peaked at 14K. And this year they've already peaked at 204, which is more than LTA North peaked at this whole weekend. So just in terms of growing the brand, and getting your team out there when I think this is the best time with this whole rebrand shakeup and everything. The fact that teams aren't at least trying to put something out there is a little bit wild to me.
Okay, so a couple things I do want to mention. I know Mark tweeted about the viewership stuff, right?
Yeah.
He said that like, especially because there were viewership conversations after having only the first day of LTA, which I thought was a little disingenuous. And that's not what I'm accusing you of, but he tweeted viewership convos starting before week 1 ending. Haha. So jumping in, we have 4 new channels in 3 languages plus new co-streaming. Tracking north plus south is more complicated, so immediate numbers might not cover everything. When we have official numbers ready, we will share like last year. So, look, I don't know if I'm not trying to say that those numbers aren't accurate, but I do just want to flag sort of what Riot's official statement has been on the viewership stuff. 2, I'm not sure. Like, okay, you mentioned the stream scrims for Los Ratones.
Yeah.
I don't like. It's unclear to me because it seems like you're implying like, hey, viewership of LTA would be higher if people streamed scrims. Is that sort of the implication? Like, oh, Los Ratones is doing this, and now Europe has like better viewership and all that type of stuff.
I think I guess the way I look at it more is like, it's instead of making like LTA North a weekend thing, it's to kind of provide more of a content cycle around the week rather than it just being, like a one-time thing, and making it more of a less of a, because I realize that the reason that, the Ratones team draws so many viewers is because of all the streamers in it. But it's like, I think it's more of, this would be a good starting place to work on trying to grow viewership, and they've proven how easy it is to do. So to me, it's less of a, oh, this is like a band-aid fix it to the problem, but it's more of a, this seems like something that you could easily be doing to grow either your team's brand or something. And it's more of a, this seems like such an easy thing to at least say we're going to try and do. Like, I understand people not wanting to, stream scrims right in the lead up to split 1, but like, no team coming out and saying like, hey, we want to do this, we just need to figure out how best to do it for our team. And maybe someone has said that, but
I mean, first off, you got to change the riot rule, because at the moment, I think it is worth noting in the conversation that you are not allowed to broadcast a 5v5 between 2 teams that are in the LTA North, right? So they would have to go to riot and change this. Whereas NLC is fine.
But we've talked about how that.
Yeah.
I don't fault you for bringing it up. I think it's good to bring it up.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Let's talk as though
I
it's
didn't know
assumed.
that.
Now, like, for the rest of the convo, yeah, exactly. It's like Collar didn't know that. Like, for the rest of the convo, we can assume that it will get changed, and we can just make the rules how we want, right?
And for what it's worth, I assume that's the same in LEC. I think this has normally been the issue.
Yeah.
I believe this to have been a rule in all Tier 1 leagues for like a decade plus.
I mean, the way that I view this and some of the viewership, right? Because like, I think you're going straight to numbers, which is like fine. I mean, I think that's something that's good to root this in.
Yeah.
Think of it in the context of you're the boss, and like, your job is that you are streaming. Like, you're gonna stream what, 8 to 10 hours a day or whatever his schedule is, right? I genuinely do not know. Having this sort of content, so instead of streaming you playing solo queue, you're gonna stream 5s and you're gonna play in a league and compete, and then you get to stream with that. It's going to, I would say, give your core audience more reason to tune in, and therefore you're going to get, let's just call it a 20% bump in viewership. I do not genuinely know what the number is, but would we say that, like, for the boss, if he's competing, and maybe people in chat have been tracking or no, is it reasonable to say that if he gets 10K usually for those matches, he might be at 12 to 15K instead? Is it like, it gives you more of a reason to tune in, right? I think that an important thing to think about when it comes to this streaming scrims thing, you're not going to get the numbers that Los Britanes are doing because they are content creators, right? They're big brands. People tune in to watch them stream every day. And this is giving them cooler content to stream, right? If Whippo and FlyQuest were to stream their scrims against anyone, they probably experience a bigger bump because, like, they usually, like, and some players might, because, hey, I might just be a fan of FlyQuest. I'm going to tune into Masu, who doesn't really stream. But if he streams this, and all of a sudden he's get like a huge bump. I don't think that people should get caught up in the numbers. It's just that I think that it comes from the sentiment of, hey, fans want a way to engage during the week, and this is a cool way to engage during the week. and brings you back to the old school league vibes where I could go on like what was the old deal that like CLG had with like that network before
On
Twitch,
3D
Travis?
TV.
I could go to Own 3D TV and watch Hotshot GG stream his solo queue while they're a top 3 team in LCS, right? And we just don't have that as much anymore. I could have watched all of CLG's stream while they were competing. That's pretty much the logic of this and returning to it. And it does give fans more of a reason to watch on throughout the week. We've had a lot of conversations about pro streaming and how that's good for the league or not. I don't think that this is the bump that, or it's going to save the league or be a massive game changer or create the drama or the week's news cycle that like we're going to expect. It's not going to be huge. In fact, I'm not surprised. Like the numbers that the NLC is experiencing and Casual and Los Ratones, for me, I actually think that the numbers have been better than what I thought, but in terms of content, it's been a little bit worse than I thought. Like I thought we'd have a drama by now, frankly, that people like really latch onto that. I assume we're gonna get one at some point. It's just bound to happen. I don't think that this will have the same impact that fans think it will, but I'm at the point where it's like, fuck it, why not? And I think that that's just kind of where I'm at with this. I would throw this up potentially on a second monitor. I know that Whippo like just put out a tweet revealing his top lane tier list and like making more of an effort to try and share more info or like more in-depth stuff, which I appreciate. Like, I mean, one of my favorite moments from Hotline League this past year was I got Nuke Duck to spill the beans in terms of a lot of his strats for Summer Split, which I didn't think he'd actually answer the question, but he was willing to share. I think that as fans of the game, that's what a lot of us are hoping when it comes to scrims. Just, hey, what does the pro think of this situation? Is this winnable or not? Like when I have the privilege to sit in scrims, like that's the stuff I'm interested in, right? Like, hey, what do they think of this? Like, is it the same as me, or is it different, or can they play this differently? You know, so I don't think that the book will be as open as is for those Ratones or Ratones because, again, I've talked about this with their team. I say this in taking nothing away from them, but their mission is content first and compete second, right? Because if your mission was compete first, you wouldn't be streaming and like making all this public, right? That if your actual intention is to win the league, which I'm not saying they aren't trying their hardest because they are, but they do handicap themselves in sharing all this, right? I appreciate that, and everyone else in the community does. And I want to approach this as that. I know that there was at least one team like FlyQuest pinged me way back talking about trying to set up scrims 1 day a week on their channel. This is something that has been talked about that I think fans would like. It wouldn't reveal everything. I'm in. F it. Why not? If fans want it, give it to them. It seems like a win-win-win-win-win for everyone. I just don't think it's going to be like the save the league impact that everyone else thinks. That doesn't mean I'm not against it. Like I'm super down. But yeah.
Yeah, I guess I think about it like more the core of like what my take was, and this is me kind of latching onto the streaming scrims in the moment, is like teams really like if you have an opportunity like this, because like I said, I'm a fan of the NFL. Like I've gone to
Respect.
like Green Bay Packers like preseason, like pre like OTA warmups where all they do is they
Wrong
just
team,
go
but
out.
respect, yeah.
Hey, look, we also haven't won a Super Bowl in a while, so but you can be a Bears fan, Cubby. That's okay. But so like I've gone to like preseason OTA warmups, and all they do is they just go out there and they're running some plays, and I'm sure that if you had the most perfect analytical football mind, you could go and you could get some information from that. But at the same time, it's a free way for fans to come and just enjoy their team and get out there and maybe meet the players, do
I mean,
something
meet
cool
other
like that.
people. Like,
Yeah, and meet other
even
people.
even seeing like the reaction to Surdy be on pros. I'm telling you, if you got to stream scrims and hear Surdy's perspective, I think the fans would have an entirely new respect for that guy. I really do. Like being able to sit in scrims that he's played in and just knowing like what he brings to the team. That guy's a really good player. He's really fucking smart. I feel
Yeah.
like it would give people like fans a reason to latch on to more players and hell, maybe like players' motivation like to be good for those days. I don't know. I really don't know what it would bring. But like again, I'm in the boat where it's like, fuck it, why not? If people want it, let's find out. And if it's good or bad, let's go from there. It's working for those Ratones or Ratones. Is it going to have the same impact here? No. Is it going to be as good as people expect it to be? No. But am I down for it? And will people tune in? And does it give more people a reason to watch streamers that they may not otherwise watch? Absolutely. So why not?
Yeah. I mean, the other thing too is like you were talking about earlier. this is a novelty split. What better to do during a novelty split than, scream some scrims? Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? Oh no, you leak one strat. Oh no, it's fearless. Oh no, you leak one pick. Well, guess what? If you pick it in one game, you can't play it the next game anyway. I've enjoyed fearless as the novelty because I haven't had to watch Ambessa Cassante for 4 straight 2-0s this weekend. It's been wonderful. It's not been perfect, but it's been better.
I think it's so crazy that you guys say, what's the worst that can happen? Because I've seen this repeated multiple times, and I'm not trying to go on you personally, Caller, but like, there are so many fucking things that can happen whenever you're streaming practice. Like, you are trying to practice something that you haven't played before, and you fucking suck on it, and it gets chimped onto Reddit, and people shit on you, or people get angry because you are remaking a game after something went really bad and the game isn't worth it. Like,
what happened? I get it. I don't care. Yeah.
The other thing,
I'm just saying there are many reasons. Like, whatever people pretend that like there's no downside to this, there are many downsides to it. And so I've found it illogical when people are like, oh, like there's no downsides to this. Oh no, haha, maybe one of your picks will get leaked. Like, there are many there's a reason why people have not been doing this for the last decade or plus. And there's a reason why it's only being done in a tier 2 situation by like a team that is built around entertainment and content. And it's because sometimes the risks are not worth the reward.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll just add one thing. I mean, like, to me, it's like, it doesn't necessarily need to be streaming scrims. Like, maybe I'm assuming bot lanes practice, like, meta 2v2s against each other occasionally in scrims.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why not? Why not just stream like LYON and CoreJJ or 2 bot lanes just practicing meta bot lanes against each other? I don't think that would reel that much. It would be something interesting to see, and it's a very small step in the direction of, maybe you do stream a 5v5 scrim. But at the same time, I don't think, watching 2 people practice, Jinx Lulu against, I don't know, Ezreal Nautilus or something just to get reps in, I don't think that's going to reveal anything,
right. But we're talking about dramatically different things now, because what the community wants is, hey, I want to see 2 teams play against each other with comms on and stream the whole thing, right? When we're talking about what you're talking about sounds even lower tier than when pros were streaming Champs Queue, right? In terms of like risk and exposure and all that type of stuff. So like, obviously it's fine. And to be clear, at this point, I am kind of the opinion that I would like teams to do this, because I think this is kind of a nothing burger. I think what's going to happen is everybody goes, Los Ratones is getting so many views. We've got to do this. How are we not doing this? And then FlyQuest will stream a scrim with Dig. No one will tune in and care about it. And then they'll stop doing it. And then people are like, why didn't they do this? And then somebody will point out that they did and no one watched it. And then like that will be kind of the end of it. Because as much as people want, like, I think people are getting baited by this other completely different situation and saying our situation is exactly like that. And I think that the conversation is we're so far off the ranch in this, and like the community has just gone so, I don't know, pig-headed on it that
they've gone feral for it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like nobody, and I know you just said this, and so I'm not trying to be disrespectful to you, but like, when people say there's no downsides to this, or what's the worst that could happen, I just feel like they're being disingenuous, or that they haven't thought it through, because there are so many things. And I see people in the chat being like, oh, they might get criticized. Well, guess what? Criticism is part of this. And it's like, yes, I get how somebody who likes to criticize people might be like, oh, what's the big deal about criticizing people? But like, you don't know. Look, people, it is so frustrating to me, because people talk incredibly frequently about how important mental health is for our players, how they need to be protected, how we need to do all this stuff to keep them in a good spot. And then they'll be like, they should stream scrims. And if people shit on them or whatever, then who cares? Also, like, I don't think that the community has the best understanding of what is the best way to practice. The person who has no idea how scrims work behind the scenes, who hasn't been a part of this ecosystem for years behind the scenes, and they're watching something for the first time on stream, and they're sitting there eating their popcorn, jerking off, and writing comments about how, oh, that top laner really sucks. I can't believe he's on the team. Like, I just feel like it's like there are considerable downsides here. And so when people pretend that there aren't, it's aggravating to me. Now, is it maybe still worth it, at least to give it a try? Sure. But I think if people do it, we should at least recognize that, like, it should be, one, an experiment, and two, that people's response should be measured. Like, honestly, I would be more in favor of it if we had a great deal of education that comes out beforehand from like coaches and teams who are like, okay, guys, we're gonna pull back the veil a little bit on how the stream or the scrims work. Here's what you should know about how scrims have always worked, because now you're going to see them, and you should get context for the fact that, like, we do, like, what is best for you playing solo queue is not necessarily best for our players to get better. And then that least would at least provide some context.
I disagree. I disagree with this on a few like different ways.
Yeah.
One, so there is downsides with it, right? And criticism. I feel like this is like should be treated like practice, and what you're describing, Travis, will happen, but that will be the minority that just want to be trolls, right? Or you are also putting your team out there for something to happen publicly, but you would also be assuming like, hey, we can always mute or handle this like mute in between games, and you could still hide info from people, which is not like a concern.
Sure.
Also, in terms of like, I think that we're off the ranch in this as well, but if more scrims were streamed, I feel like there would be a greater understanding of what you were talking about, like what it looks like.
Yeah.
And some of the weird things where it's like, oh, like why'd they FF that or like remake that game at 10? Like whatever, that wouldn't matter. Because again, this is the teams trying to get the best practice possible. And if fans start scratching their head at that, like, it'll be more common. Like they might understand why for some games. And I think that like streaming this, it will help in the long haul, because that knowledge gap that you're talking about just gets narrow by the fact that you're broadcasting this, right? And again, in terms of the way that we're viewing downsides, I think that something that you're getting at, which I think is fair, and that again, Los Ratones, right? This is a content team that is competing in a tier 2 league. If there is drama or negatives, that still, in a way, is a pro for them, because it's going to make people more engaged with the content. For a pro team, that might be viewed as a negative, because you might have a negative impact like of the team, right? I don't think the Los Ratones fans care as much about that as a FlyQuest fan may care about that. I think that's reasonable. Still, there's a way to hide that, and also just by broadcasting it, I think that there would be a greater understanding of what everything looks like, which should still be a positive in the long haul. And I don't have the same concerns about negative impact as you do. Again, I think that just broadcasting this, it is a way for people to, see what it looks like, at least behind the scenes today. Frankly, if you're an old school LCS fan, you will have seen a lot of the documentaries and like the week-to-week stuff that teams did, which will give you at least somewhat of an idea of what scrims look like, just without like the in-depth strategic conversations. But like that did give a lot to what practice looked like. So I don't share the same sentiment with you that fans will take the knowledge gap and not react well to it. I think that just by putting it out there, A, that narrows, and B, I think that fans at least should be appreciative of like, hey, they will be trying things, or hey, things might get wild, or hey, there's 50 kills in 10 minutes, like, or oh my god, we actually got the other form of Otacon to spawn because there are so many kills. Like that, all this should be fine just because it's scrims. So I think that it's a nothing burger, because it's something that just should be done, and then we'll see if we like it or not, and we'll go from there. And I'm with you. I don't think it's going to be like the next big thing. But at this point, if we're this up in arms about it, like, fuck it, why not? Like, let's just do it.
That is how I've gotten to it. And to be clear, like, I know that what in this video, if it gets posted on Reddit and people or whatever, people will nitpick and be like, Travis listed all these reasons they shouldn't do it. I want to be clear that I am not even suggesting we shouldn't try it. I am just pushing back against the idea that there are no downsides to this, because I think there are risks. Cubby, you say fans should be appreciative of, and I'm not sure if fans have ever been appreciative of anything in this space. They are reactionary. They see their favorite personality criticize some pro player on a co-stream or whatever, and then they continue to just cry out that player should never be allowed to touch the Rift again. Like, I don't know. I am surprised at how much this has just become like taken for granted that it should happen. And I feel like people have become blind to the very obvious reasons why people would not want to scrim, especially in the season. Like Icebreaker, you were talking about the traditional sports. I remember I went out to Vegas a couple of summers ago with Raz, and Raz was watching NBA summer training, I think is what it was, or whatever. That's like
the
a
G
thing
League.
that they do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
League, yeah.
I don't even know if it was the tier 2 because G League's the tier 2 stuff, right? I think he was watching like
their
their
preseason.
scrims, their equivalent of
Yeah.
scrims, I think, right?
It'd be
And
preseason games, yeah, it's like warm-ups.
yeah, and so like that reminds me more of what Core DJ was organizing in the past, or like I think it would have been fun to see this type of stuff, but I think in season it's kind of crazy. And Icebreaker, I do agree with your idea, and this kind of goes back to what Cubby was saying around like, hey, maybe if we're treating this season as a for fun season or a warm-up season or something that's a novelty, then like this is the time to do it. So I think that's fair. But I don't know, it's become a pet peeve of mine where people went from like, oh, this is cool, it's cool that Los Ratones is doing this, oh, it'd be cool to see our players do this, to now it's so incredible that no one would ever do this. This is the most obvious thing in the world that has absolutely no downsides effect, whatsoever. Man. How have we not been doing this forever? It's like, well, there's some very big reasons why not.
There are, but if fans are this up in arms about it, especially this split, like why not? I mean, again, I view this as a novelty split. I love what the LCK teams are doing by playing some of their Challengers players. I think Smash getting play is great. Pungyung is someone that I talked really highly about on my stream and behind the scenes when I've been going over VODs to prep for Saint and Loki. Like I love that they're getting subs in, like they're mixing up rosters, like they're actually treating this somewhat experimentally. And I wish that we had more infrastructure and teams that still were fielding 10 players overall in order to do some of that here. Because this is a split where in the past, if you had a team like Team Liquid, who during the lock-in split played LYON, Ayla, and Bradley while they were fixing their visa issues, like that's fun. I love what LCK is doing by getting players like Pungyun and Smash Time. Players that are really good behind the scenes that do deserve to be an LCK, but aren't because of the teams they're on. I think that this is the opportunity to do that. So again, this is part of how I view the split. And if you don't want to stream scrims in split 3 where the stakes are the highest, I'm fine with that too. But the stakes are not the highest in split 1, so why not? Again, especially if everyone's this.
And that's the final thing I'll say on this too is that I think it is fun that FlyQuest is pushing this. Like I am not trying to talk down on them doing this.
Talk the league.
I think when Bippo stands up, grabs the mic, and says all the stuff, like it adds spice to the space. I do wish that FlyQuest was probably being a little bit more clear and managing expectations, because what they probably should be saying is like, now is a great time to be doing this, because I just don't believe that they would be streaming scrims like as we get closer to playoffs in certain splits or whatever, you know. Like I think managing it is, hey, it's the beginning of the year, let's stream scrims to get people introduced to the teams, and let's, you know, the stakes are not as high right now, and that type of stuff. I think that would probably be better to manage expectations, because I don't believe that FlyQuest will keep, you know, if they get other teams, I don't think they or other people will do this all the way through playoffs and that type of time, you know.
I mean, in scrims, you know, you actually get 5-game fearless, and it actually gets fucking fun because LPL got the format right by.
Yeah, we should talk about that, because I've heard from players that it's like pretty tough. Yeah. All right, Icebreaker. Sorry, I didn't mean to go aggro on you. This is just I really respect you calling in, because I really love it whenever we can have real conversations about this stuff. So thank you.
Yeah, it's something that is just very interesting to me as just a piece of the, you know, esports environment that has a chance to kind of grow and happen. And I will say, like, I know you just to go back to one thing before I give my shout outs, you know, you talked about the, you know, going to see the NBA, you know, preseason. It's like, well, that's something traditional sports does, but we're not traditional sports. We don't, you know, I've seen it work there, but that doesn't mean we can't try it and, you know, adapt it to our own situation, which is the fact that, you know, we could do that during the middle of the season, especially during a split that
I only brought up T-Sports because you brought up like I was only addressing your you argued for you made the T-Sports argument in the first place, and so I was only reacting to it.
Yeah, no, but no, I enjoy coming on here and having that discussion. You know, since I'll do my shout outs now, since we talked about T-Sports.
I was going to politely offer them to you, so don't worry.
Yeah, I'll just, you know what? I'll just say this to Cubby. Go Packers. And maybe we'll find out why Ben Johnson was a bad hire in 3 years, because that's kind of how it always works. Have a good night.
Have a good one, Icebreaker. Thank you for the call.
By
the way, I do really want to thank folks who call in with takes like that and will go back and forth with us, because I've noticed a tendency, especially in the last, like, I don't know, year or so, for people to rush the comments in after the show and be like, I can't believe they didn't talk about this or they didn't address this. I'm like, guys, just call in. It's a call-in show. If you want us to talk about these things, be the change you want to see. But yeah,
I thought they just didn't want to talk about it because I'm so intimidating, Travis. And then they
It's
don't
true.
Want to go back and forth. We're just right because we speak with such authority. Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Kangas, by the way, for rating us with 33 viewers. Really was fun to see him on the broadcast this past weekend. It's cool to see him there. So
yeah, well deserved for Steve.
Yeah. You want to go grab the next caller while I shout out some subs?
Yeah.
GM and TST, thank you for the 28 months. I think I got you before, but just in case. Raging Pianist, thank you for the 12. Swede, thank you for the gift to Papa Smithy. Sixella with the 4 months, thank you. And Perchy99 at 51. Really appreciate it. I have completely split the chat right now because I saw it earlier. I will read, where is this? Because I thought it was pretty funny. Somebody said, Travis is legit the dumbest person I know. I don't know this person, by the way. They need player guests so this dude stops talking. If anyone else did League content, I wouldn't have to watch this. There are other people that do League content, I promise you. Then I see Evil Trenton says, Travis is still the only sane person in League. So we're, it's all over the place right now in terms of reactions.
I knew I was fucking insane, man. Thank you, chat, for making me realize I've lost my sanity. Yeah.
I've become divisive. Gengariffith is here. Gengariffith, where are you calling from?
Just now. Recent
Paris, Kentucky.
Paris, Kentucky. Those are two words I've never thought I'd hear together. What do you want to talk about on the show?
Y'all were talking about burgers, and all I can think about is Five Guys. That's not what I want to talk about, but I have to mention it because y'all mentioned so much burger talk earlier. Anyway, first weekend of LTA was a lot of fun for me. I've been a long time viewer. Like, I've been watching since season 3, and I really think that the balance team should lean into the whole Noxus theme. I've seen enough, we've tried to balance League of Legends, and it's led to Corki Azir, Corki Victor, Victor Corki, Victor Azir, Victor Oriana. I'm tired of that shit. Like, just let's lean into the season thing. I'd like to see a lot more Noxus champs in matches. Give me like the Briarclad, Talon, Samira. Give me Vlad, Darius. I don't care. It feels like they're forgotten, and this is supposed to be the Noxus season. Granted, I will say, obviously, Mbessa and Rel picked pretty often, and we only did have 8 games, so it's, we had the least amount of games we possibly could have had. And I think this format's really cool with the fact that, like, even with those 8 games, we still had 56 unique champs that were either picked or banned. Like, that's hype. I just wish to see more Noxus, because that's the whole point of this season. And it's everywhere on the client and almost nowhere in the stream.
Did you watch the Noxus show match?
Yes, that's that was fun. But I'm talking about, the LTA.
So. Yeah, I will say that I've never really viewed like Fearless or also the split and the new system they have where they're gonna have themed seasons as, hey, we're gonna buff these champions. I will say though, fortunately, because you are a fan of Noxus, the last 2 champions released, Melon and Bessa, are maybe 2 of the most disgusting champions I've seen released back to back, both from Noxus. So in a way, you are still getting your wish. But yeah, I've never really viewed Fearless as like, hey, we should buff up the champs that are from this region for the split, or like have perks for this, or give reasons to take those champs. I think that the themed Rift and client is a lot. And personally, I also still really enjoy a lot of the historical matchups. Like, there was a game of Victor Azir. If you are a good mid laner historically at this game, and overall, like, this as a matchup that has been played for years, and yes, while things around it have changed, theory of, hey, if the Azir gets the Victor flash before 6, guess where the enemy jungler is going to be when Azir like hits 6, right? He's going to be at mid to try and kill the flashless Victor. I like the fact that things in the game can at least stay the same, because it is a way to tie in different seasons, like, and also put things in historical context when things don't change too much.
Tell me honestly though, do you really think that those are champs will ever go away? Like
Okay,
the
so
classic
this is
matchups?
also like another thing, right? Like Samira, right, as a champion, is really tough to blind or really tough to take early. She is very narrow in the way that she can play the game and be successful. So if you did, in theory, want to have a reason to take Noxus champions, just because that's the split this year, you would have to overhaul the game in a way that either rewards you taking champions from a certain part of the lore, or reward like just uber buff those champs, or just change the kits to make them better, which I don't think is feasible. I think the most feasible way to do this would like tie champs to regions and have like what Marvel Rivals does with like team ups, or if you have 3 Noxus champs, you get a buff or some shit like that, which I don't like for the game because I feel like that warps it too much.
No, I
Yeah.
think that's fair. I mean more like so like the games 2 and 3, you know, like when you're falling back onto stuff. It'd just be nice to see a little bit more with what this season is.
Yeah, so
what they were shooting for with the season in terms of the game.
with the Fearless, I assume specifically, I will say,
Yeah, I don't see it happening in split 2 or 3. So
yeah,
now's the time.
I will say that as someone that did cast Fearless for a year last year, you don't really feel Fearless until games 3, 4, and 5, like truly. And a lot of the meta right now, not just looking at LTA North, but even like globally, the role that gets the most narrowed with Fearless format is bot lane, because the ADs and supports are just the smallest pool, especially with effective blinds. So blinds meaning a champ that you can pick, like without having a counter, right? Or like you can just throw and then have it be responded to. That's the kind of stuff that really dictates Fearless. Just with best of threes, it's not great. I think LPL actually got this format right. They're doing groups in best of fives, so the minimum amount of games that you play are 9, which is, I think, reasonable for the split. That's if you get 3-0'd and 3 best of fives. And also just with best of fives, that's where you get to flex the Fearless format the most. So I think that would have been a more interesting Fearless way to do Fearless. And I don't like the fact that the minimum amount of games you play in this split, if you are LTA North, is 4, which I'm pretty shocked that we haven't had a caller call in about, because that is a really low amount of games.
Well, even with us playing the minimum this past weekend, what was it? We had
8.
29, 30 champs that were picked once. Like that's, I don't know. I feel like I've watched a long time, and I can't remember a time where it's been like, yeah, it's some people pulled out some very unique picks for the weekend.
You like that better?
Yeah, I mean, 80 champs were played, right? If 8 games were played, 80 champs got picked, and 29 of them were unique. They were not played another time for the rest of the weekend, let alone the rest of whatever series. That's kind of cool.
Okay. So kind of, I'm trying to delineate Caller and Cubby. Are we talking more about Fearless stuff here, or more about Noxus champion presence?
I care more about Noxian champion presence, if I'm being honest. But I want to see that in terms of like, even if it's just placebo buffs, like give them a reason to see it on the Rift. I don't know. Like I feel like I haven't seen these champs in pro play, unless it's Adam playing Darius, and I don't know how long.
Well, they gave Ambessa a dash after every ability, and they gave Mel's W.
Yeah, okay.
Like that W. So they're trying. They are.
Do you want them to? So in this world, would you have them overtune all the Noxian champs essentially? Like
just a bit. Yeah.
I very much
I think it'd be fun
to less patches, and also something that I know Mark Cuban kind of famously said about esports and his beef with it, about how these games, they patch the game every 2-3 weeks to appeal to the common player and not to the competitive scene. I 100% agree with him about that, actually, when it comes to competitive. So I personally would like to see games be changed less, and not like have themed years. So I will disagree with this, but I do find it interesting that like you care about the fact that there is a theme to this year, and therefore you would love to see more champs from that and tying it in. And I could see Riot maybe liking that approach, especially given with like what their approach seems to be with the entertainment arm that's growing for them. So I do find that interesting. So yeah, I would disagree from the purest version of the game. But I do find this interesting.
I don't know. There's something about, it's funny because I am as a player far more casual than I guess many, but as an esports fan, I would be a little uncomfortable with them trying. It feels more like a marketing tactic at a certain point in time, where you're like, we're going to balance around not what the game designers think is necessarily best, but more around what we want to promote. I feel like you start to lose a little bit of the competitive integrity, and also just sort of the inherent balance. Like I think it feels kind of bad if you're like, oh wow, I love Piltover champions, but the Piltover season isn't going to happen for a couple of years, and so my champions will never have a chance to, get a universal buff or something along those lines. So I feel like there are better ways for them to introduce Noxian flavor into the game, and there are, like, okay, I would agree with you if a season came along, like let's say they do a Shurima season or something, and all of the Shuriman champions suck that year, then that would feel really bad. Like, I do think that they should probably make sure to some extent that at least champions are viable in the season in which they're in. But it feels like you can play a lot of Noxus champions, and I'm going to be honest, I don't know how many people know which champions are Noxus and which. Like, there are some obvious ones, right? Where you're like, okay, these ones are, but I overheard some conversations about what was going on for the Noxian show match, and there were a lot of people who didn't know. I think there was one of the casters this weekend, like on the casting desk, they're like, is this champion Noxian? I don't know. And Riot's constantly retconning every champion into a different place. Characters that were Shadow Isles are now Noxian, and I don't know. This is really weird. So I just get worried about balancing around those types of things. But it is like an interesting question and an interesting idea. Like, hey,
how hard
if we're moving into a world where, like, the world should feel more present in the game and in the esport, like, what's the best way to do that? And trying to increase the viability of some of these champions, I guess, is not that crazy.
So I guess in my time, right, like there was the infamous Juggernaut patch, right, where they overtuned all Juggernauts, and we saw that effect in game, in pro, everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And I know that it was infamous, but at the same time, like, well, did they not mean to? They meant to, like, make Juggernauts better, right?
Yeah,
like,
but not like, they didn't mean to do that. That's why they said we're never doing that again afterwards. So yeah.
I don't know. Like I said, it's not like I'm asking for these have to be the best picks, but the fact that the only ones I'm really seeing are in Best of Rel, and you're right, Mel will get played. Cool. It's kind of weird to me that the rest are either non-existent or, well, non-existent. I feel like the only reason we're gonna see some of the others is either A, if they're super meta, like or someone's pocket pick, like a Hansama Draven or a Sniper Riven. But besides that, it's not.
Here's what
I don't
you
feel
do.
like we're gonna see many of them. We're not gonna see.
I think.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I think gengariffith, that what you should do is you should track. You should, like, make a chart of all the champions of Noxus, and you should track, like, what their pick rate is and their ban rate and their viability and all that stuff. And then at the end of the season, one, you can call back into Hotline League, we'll take you. But two, also, like, post on Reddit and be like, hey, this was the Noxus season. How well were Noxus champions represented in, the top of, pro play, like win rates and all that stuff like that, but also in casual play or just solo queue or whatever. Like, I think that would be something that would be really interesting, and something that could change my opinion a little bit on this, right? Like, again, I don't feel comfortable with them necessarily balancing around what lore a character came from, what their lore background is, but I do like the idea of like making sure that you have a Shadow Isles patch, and, like, at least some of the Shadow Isles champions have, like, a pretty decent presence. So
yeah, I think I should clarify. It's not like I want them to be overtuned. I just feel like they're missing. That's all. I just feel like they're missing, even in a split where it's supposed to be even more variety. Granted, Cubby's already mentioned that didn't happen in the year that he casted it, and also we only did have the minimum possible games we could have had. So, like, I get that it's just one weekend, but it does feel like at no point did I really feel like, oh, they're gonna pull out Talon Jungle or Kled Top or other champions that are.
I would like to see Talon, because he's basically a Mistborn. I think heavily inspired from Mistborn, so that would be kind of fun.
See, I actually know that that's from the Brandon Sanderson world. You know,
Yeah,
I'm
I
learning
mean,
about
I
that.
think heavily
Also,
inspired. You know, legally speaking, he's only heavily inspired. It's his jacket only kind of looks like a mist cloak,
Like-
right? Yeah.
Also, to Travis's point, and I just learned that Rel was from Noxus from this caller. So, yeah.
Dude, it is tough. Like, there's a lot of characters that were previously Shadow Isle. This is, I don't want to start a rant about Riot Games.
I would like to move
Is
on.
it, is it
Next
just
caller,
released? But
know,
yeah,
yeah. I think
you're
it
right.
was a
I think you're right. We should move on.
But yeah, we don't need. I don't know if we want. I want to.
You're gonna start.
Rant
You're gonna
about
activate
more, you know?
my rant mode. Okay.
Yeah.
Gengariffith, thanks so much. Thanks for calling
Thank
in
you,
again with a
yeah.
unique take. These have been really fun takes so far. So thank you. Anything you want to shout out?
Yeah, I got 3 shout outs if that's okay. I'll
Sure.
make it quick, I promise. High school esports leagues around the nation are starting their seasons back up for the spring. I want to shout out Papa Smithy. I feel like I've watched TGI for like 5 or 6 years now, and dude's always in the chat. And shout out Brandon Sanderson. I had a dream the other night that Fortiche made a Cosmere series, and I'm really sad that I woke up.
Well, I'm glad you woke up eventually. I hope that you're, but yes, I can understand the desire for that. I feel, oh man,
Bro, your book channel got me hooked. Like, honestly, I'm addicted, and my wife's addicted, and it's 100% your fault, by the way.
Did I meet you at Houston Spring Finals in 22?
No.
Did we meet somewhere? I thought I might have met you at some point
in Chicago in an elevator.
And I think you came
It
up.
was
You
hella
said,
awkward, and I was just like, "What's up?"
I think you told me that you got into Brandon Sanderson stuff,
Yes,
right? Or did you?
I did.
Yeah.
I mentioned it. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
I had to.
I remember. Yeah. It was really fun coming out of the pandemic that so many people were like, "Oh, you and Mark got me so into those books." So,
it's a problem for my bank account. But anyway,
yeah.
have a great night, y'all.
Yeah. Have a good
Thank
one.
you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to take a quick break to talk about NZXT. Thank you so much to NZXT for sponsoring the stream. I don't know how much I'm allowed to say about this, but I would just point out, I will just reference the fact that if you're watching live, it might be interesting for you to know that NZXT has been teasing something. On the 21st, they tweeted a egg and said they're about to hatch something with the hashtag NZXT egg. And I am excited for what will be hatching, I guess is what I will say. I'm trying to be vague because I have not, I don't have explicit guidelines around what I can and can't say, but I'm excited to see what they've got coming. And whatever it is that they're hatching, perhaps I will have a chance to do something with that. So stay tuned for that. We'll hopefully be talking about that in the near future, but shout out to NZXT. I'm really excited about what they have coming, and yeah, it's going to be good. They're a fantastic partner. If you're looking to pick up an NZXT PC or an accessory or any of that type of stuff, you can find the link in the description of this video, or Numi's probably already put it into both chats. If she hasn't yet, you can do !NZXT. Oh yeah, there she is. When you do check out, please use code Travis5 because that will save you, and it does stack with their sales and stuff like that most of the time. So really appreciate NZXT for their sponsorship of the show. What were you gonna say, Cubby? I think you were gonna sneak in.
No, shut it on ZXT. I was gonna make a joke about hatching, but we're good. I had a morning after burger for dinner, which had an egg in it, so
Yeah, I got you.
Nice hatch.
You're on one right now. Speaking of, by the way, the chat is also on one. It's been really funny. I saw Kelby in there earlier. Crepo's in there. Papa Smithy. I saw the Cloud9 account, the FlyQuest account. There's all sorts of people in there. You know who I miss? I miss when Team Liquid folks were in the chat. We gotta bring some of them back. They hosted us last night at their place, but yeah.
All right, next caller.
What you had over? What was that expression, Cubby?
I do not know. I was looking at the chat and just kind of staring.
Oh, I see.
This. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Ready for the next caller. Half of Travis viewership right now is nepotism. Yes. I'm just here. Yeah. Kelby watching all the way from Japan. Good times. We'll get our next caller here in just a second. Oh, I do want to shout out over on YouTube because we're also streaming on YouTube. We have a bunch of viewers over there as well. Arthur, thank you for becoming a TGI intern. Icebreaker Mints, Chris the Ghost, and Michio. Thank you so much, everybody, for becoming interns. We will have the interviews. I'm sorry, they should have gone up yesterday, but we had, as I said at the start of the show, a staffing issue this weekend at the LTA, which will pop up in some of the content, which is kind of funny. But hoping to get those interviews up. And for YouTube members, they will be available all at once as we get those uploaded. So everybody else will kind of release over the course of the week. Wow, Azore Lauren is here as well. It's kind of great. What a crazy mixture of people. Zoldyck is here. Is it Zoldyck or Zeldyck? Zoldyck, like kind of like Psyduck.
Yeah, from Hunter x Hunter, if you watch that.
I don't watch anime. I assume that's anime, right?
Yes.
All right. Is it good?
Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
All right. I'll pretend. Wait, is there anything you can tell me about it that I can say that will make Mark think that I watched it so that he stops bothering me?
I don't know. Just talk about your favorite character is Killua.
Okay, thank you. Where are you calling from?
Fremont, California.
Fremont, California. What do you want to talk about tonight on the show?
So I've been watching LCS for the longest time. I've actually been watching since LCS started in 2013. And watching a little bit of this weekend, I don't feel like I have a reason to watch. I'm not excited.
Whatever. Okay. I'm not saying that you need to have a reason to watch, but I'm so surprised to hear this because I feel like it is like indistinguishable from LCS. You know, like the LTA, it will eventually change, but so I'm very fascinated to hear your reasoning.
I think there's no reason for me to be excited. There's like no storyline, no major storylines. I feel like the last time I was excited about LCS was when Danny was playing. And besides that, nothing since has really gotten me excited or like given me a reason to watch the league.
What would get you excited? Start there.
I think we just need like more like people to kind of show up. I feel like I know you guys have been talking about like the streaming scrims and everything. I don't find that exciting. I think that's just like stirring the pot. But I want to see like a player like somewhat like fundamentally change the league. I feel like Masu is kind of like that, but
yeah, I mean he just had one of the best rookie splits, if not the best rookie split ever.
Yeah,
so
but I think besides was it the I forgot the name of the show, but you know
Pros?
Besides that, or not Pros, the what's it called, like the Drive?
Yeah, he had a good episode.
Yeah, but besides Drive, like the only thing that people had to talk about Masu was his play and nothing else, right? There's no real brand behind him besides his skill.
I mean, okay, his play is also like really, really, really good as a first year. That's pretty awesome. I know that he's a quieter one, but I think he does have a great story. But if you haven't latched onto it, I mean, that's okay. What got you to latch on to Danny? Because he was also on the quiet end, you know?
I think it's just been like at that time we didn't really have any like academy player that was like popping off like that.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah. Or are you excited? So Masu was someone that was new. Are you excited about Surdy? I mean, I think Surdy is a great candidate coming up here.
Well, I don't watch much of like academy, so I don't know much about Surdy. So like if he pops off, then maybe I'll have a reason to watch out. But as of right now, like he's still an unknown quantity to the league.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Okay, if you're like, hey, this league is not holding my attention anymore, or like, oh, I want a team that is, you know, guaranteed to do well internationally or whatever, I think there are many reasons why somebody would be uninterested in watching the LTA. And certainly I've had my own criticisms of Riot's decisions around it. I am disappointed that more people are not tuning in, or that you don't feel like you have much of an interest in watching this year, because I do think that there are some really great personalities. I think I kind of want to make the argument that like Sven is kind of becoming one of the main characters of the league. I think he kind of has been for a while, but his just willingness to like go in on people, talk shit, say whatever, I think is really cool. You've got Pwippo, who's like a similar personality. You have a lot of people. Surdy is now coming up on that. XU has been really funny and entertaining. If you've watched some of his stuff, I think But let me ask you this, Zoldyck. Why? How much of the content of the LTA do you watch? Like, are you only watching the broadcast and seeing the games and being like, okay, I don't care about anything? Because I do feel like there's some of this ancillary content, like the Disguised Toast apartment tour video, and the like the draw match that they did, or the drawing that they did right after the show match, where all the players were like shit talking each other, or even like on pros, where you learn a lot about these players. And so,
Yeah.
like, do you watch any of this stuff? Or are you just
I
mostly watching the broadcast?
also personally, like, I feel like having Disguise in the league and having Moist and Ludwig attached to SR now officially, which is a big thing that happened this past week that we may or may not take a call on. Or like even LYON coming in. I mean, for me, this is more reason to be a fan for some of these teams than what we had in the past. So I'm curious what you think about that too.
So honestly, I do watch a lot of additional content. So like I watched all the episodes of Pros. I've watched like Disguise Apartment Tour, but like for me, I feel like that content is more entertaining to watch than the actual broadcast of all the matches.
Yeah. I wouldn't recommend you watch all the matches. This is kind of I think that we're now in an era, and maybe this is bad for viewership, but like I do think people should probably be picking and choosing what they want to watch. And I like, are there any teams or players that you feel drawn to right now? Maybe the problem is you and maybe the answer is no. I'd be open to that, but like,
yeah, I mean, like if you don't like watching the games, I mean, could have aged out.
Yeah, I've been the C9 fan for the longest time, but I feel like their roster right now is just something I can't get excited about just because of past history. Like I know Sven is pretty popular, but I feel like he's been doing the same thing, and like kind of everyone else is kind of following suit. Where like in pros they're just like shit talking all the time.
Okay.
Back then when it was just like double lift doing it or just one person, but now if everyone's doing it, it's not as entertaining.
I am going to somewhat agree with you on the latter half. And I will also hop off Travis's comment on this. Like, I mean, even like Travis, like going through, I mean, some of the players that you were a little bit more excited about, or just like bringing up, like, oh, like they're willing to talk, like they're talking trash. Everyone talks trash now, and that is what the league sells. And for me, it doesn't mean fucking shit. All the trash that everyone is talking, when only one team wins, and arguably only two teams and a handful of players even have the right to talk shit. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, do I like XU trash talking Dignitas and other people? Yes. But also, I have Disguised bottom two, and they are the one team that can actually get relegated out of LTA. So should we actually be talking smack? I don't think so. I actually don't know.
Yes, they
I
should.
don't find it...
Cubby. Oh, okay. Finish your thought, because I'm actually excited to argue with you about this.
Part of the fun of talking smack is actually being able to back it up. I really liked what FlyQuest did last year because, I mean, they were upset in spring. They were the favorites. They continued to talk. They actually had people that didn't like them and were rooting against them. And then they won at the end. They get to take a victory lap. TL kind of did the same thing. Like, they won at the end. They get to take a victory lap. There are so many teams that just talk that I know have absolutely zero fucking chance to win this league, and I find that boring. Like, dude, you do need to find other ways to sell yourself. And I actually feel like the LTA and like LCS last year at some points actually struggled to sell new ways. Like for me, I think that I really like when we find ways to sell players. Like, for example, is Masu a quieter player? Yes. Did that drive video? Do I think that gives people a lot of reasons to latch onto Masu? Absolutely. And if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it because that series is great. That was a really, really, really good series of content. This whole thing where, hey, everyone talks trash isn't entertaining to me. It isn't. I think it's nice that like people are willing to say stuff, but every interview is like, oh, what do you think about this? It's like, oh yeah, they suck ass. Yeah, all right. Like, all right, yeah. Oh, like they said something weird. I really cannot attach to it like over a long form of time. I don't think it's interesting, and I think overall it actually lessens the moments where that does happen. And also, again, I think the majority of teams in the league just have absolutely no right to be saying half this shit, but they do. They're going to go out and get their fucking asses whooped anyway for nothing. Like, who cares? In the end, like that doesn't mean anything. Even thinking like Dignitas last year, think about how much shit Jensen and Sven talked just to get fucking embarrassed in playoffs. That's lame as shit. All right. I actually like that doesn't appeal to me at all. I actually like rather have like people appeal to others, like for different reasons. And like a lot of the league, as Kelby's saying, does have a really similar personality, and I don't like it. I think that like we actually need to find ways to differentiate.
Cubby, your opinion is bad as you feel bad. Okay, so here's where I'm gonna. This is, I think, the most you and I have ever disagreed on something. One,
Cool.
I don't think that the pros all exhibit the same personality at all. Like, I think that you usually have one or two people on each team who are willing to talk shit. And
Who was on the last 2 pros? And out of all the people on those episodes, did they talk shit or not? Majority. Literally all 6 did.
Yeah, because they're picking like the shit talkers for the early episodes of pros because you want to pick those people.
It proves my point, but continue.
I don't think that you selected 6 of the players that are across 8 teams, and you've said that like this proves the point. We went through a drought. Like it's California right now, and it's finally raining, and you're sitting there being like, I think this rain is too wet. I'm frustrated. Like, I spent years begging pro players to say anything. In fact, like even on Reddit, people still accuse the pro players of having PR answers. And finally, after last year, APA and others kind of started to get these guys out of their shell. And I don't want to besmirch them. The other thing I want to say is like, look, you talked about Disguise. I have not seen Disguise. Maybe I'm wrong, but I've not seen Disguise like shit talk FlyQuest, shit talk Team Liquid, etc. I've seen them shit talk Dignitas, which I think is great. Like this is the perfect thing because it's the fight at the bottom.
I do agree on that.
See, isn't like yes, that? I think is perfect. I love that they were like, okay, listen, we cannot shit talk and beat the top teams, so we have to pick our battles. We're just and like Toast had said on stream, like we just don't want to be last place, and so they're like, who's the other person who might be last place? Probably Dignitas. Okay, we have some natural beef with them, and they've just decided that they're
directed though. At least that's directed.
It's a little directed, but it's also like it does feel a little. It feels a little there, and like we're creating rivalries between teams that are at similar points, right? Like I do think a Dig DSG matchup, like anytime we see it, is going to be fun because of the hype between these two teams or whatever. It's going to be fun for me at least. I know that not everybody's like. Some people do just want like, okay, these two teams suck. Like, why are we watching the bottom tier teams? But like, that's just the most interaction we've had. It's not like Immortals and Dignitas were ever like interacting with each other. It was just usually a race to the bottom between the two of them. So I don't know. I love it. I think the place I will agree with you on is there's a way to overdo it. Like if the whole broadcast is always shit talk this, shit talk that, and they're not telling other cool stories like the Masu story from last year, then I agree that it's a little overdone. And I agree with Kelby that says like the whole league cannot just have the same personality. But like, my God, man, I would much rather them have this personality than zero personality that they've had for years. Like, this has been so great for me.
TikTokers, and yeah, I agree with that. I do think though right now, like we need more things than just like, all right, like it's an interview, talk trash to this guy. I feel like there is just a lot of that right now, and I'd like to have things get deeper. I think that when you end up getting like trash talk with this, especially general trash talk, it's just very surface level. And I personally do not find that interesting. And in the end, it doesn't mean as much.
Yeah, I don't think that there's
talk's nice when it's warranted in the moment.
I don't feel like there's that much general trash talk these days. Like I feel like when Whippo's trash talking, yeah, but he's doing it within the context of scrims, right? Like he's doing this as like a
and that he's the top dog. But anyway, yeah.
By the way, I also think it's nice because I'm not saying everybody should root for Whippo. I think there's a lot of people that should root against Whippo because maybe they dislike that,
And but that's what FlyQuest got right, and they were the only ones that like actually had people actively dislike them too. And I like the fact that some people did and didn't like that team. Like that's a good thing.
I think APA did that too.
Yes, yeah, he did. Like I wasn't a TSM fan, but everyone felt some way about TSM, and that's really valuable. There are a lot of teams where people don't feel some way about them one way or the other, and that's an issue.
The other thing I do want to call out is I think Sven, when he trash talks, it's so funny. He does it in these witty ways, which he doesn't just pick up the mic and be like, "Oh yeah, that team sucks." By the way, like we're doing the format video, and in it somebody says like, "Oh wait, so you don't play that much this year?" if you're bad, and it just cuts to him and he just says, well, that sucks for Dignitas. Like little things like that I think are clever and are not necessarily like, I think trash talk for the sake of trash talk is bad, but I think if it's like witty and fun, it's cool.
Like, is there been, what was the last interesting interaction that you can think about, or storyline or anything in LTA or LCS that didn't involve trash talk?
Well, it's tough because we've only had this first weekend. But I think last year it was around Masu. I think Masu's story was like the highlight of last year and was really captivating and cool from the beginning, where they're telling his story, even though I messaged Andrew Barton and asked if there was an interesting story there, and he said no, it wasn't, and then the whole features team came out with that. But when it did come out, it was really cool, and then he popped off at Worlds, he did all this stuff. I think that was really compelling.
I want one example that I would like, or like stuff that I want.
Yeah.
I thought one of the cooler moments for me last year was when Umti won in spring, and he had a really emotional reaction to that because he had never won anything before. That was the first time I heard of it, like getting ahead of stuff like that. I know it's hard to do, like happening in the moment, but that's the kind of stuff where like I actually become a fan of that person. Like if you get the full Umti story out, because he is someone that was an LCK journeyman. He was on bad teams. He was starting and benched, was like Jekyll and Hyde sometimes on the Rift. I mean, he really struggled to get to the part where he won. Like for me, that would have been a brilliant story to tell if it then ended up paying off. You get that beforehand.
Yeah.
Like it's like kind of post-mortem, we figure that out, and that's the kind of stuff that I really miss. I feel like now when it's like, all right, we're gonna use a lot of the time that we have where everyone just kind of gets a jab in, gets a wink and a nudge, and that's it. You get very surface level stories and moments where I think that I'm missing the deeper stuff. Like even like with Masu winning, what did that mean for him as a rookie? Like, why am I the one that's tweeting out these stats about the most valuable prospect awards and like what they're doing and how fast and then how far they're making it, like not, the main broadcast or like stuff like this, right? I think that we're, by just defaulting to the kind of like wink, wink, nudge, nudge, or like, jabbing, and I will get broadcast credit. I feel like they did a really nice job of pitching Surdy for week 1. They had good stats about his accomplishments before LTA, what got him here, like his solo queue achievements.
I was about to say, Cubby, one piece of content I do want to shout about this that I didn't even see until this past week, because Numi came over and we traded baked goods for dinner, and we were talking about the FlyQuest channel, and I became aware of a video that I had not noticed that has 87,000 views on an LTA YouTube channel that says how a kid from Australia took over League of Legends in North America. And while they interviewed somebody in it that I was not really interested in, he kind of just droned on frequently.
Yeah, he kind of sucks ass.
Yeah. I did think that the video was really cool. And I love that they did this. And it's ironic that obviously I think they released this video right before they released him and they went to a different team. But like,
that was on purpose. Yeah. A shout out to Pastry Time who did that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Zoldyck, like, to bring it back to you, Zoldyck, the caller, I think there are some really cool stories out there. And I go back and forth, because on one hand, I'll see, like I saw on Reddit, people were like, I had no idea LTA was starting this weekend. And I like look at Reddit all the time and Twitter and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, they released a hype video and then a bunch of teams released other videos. And many of these were on the front page of Reddit. So like at a certain point in time, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And I do feel like people can do better. But I also don't know what the solution is whenever like there is really good content coming out, and in my opinion, some really fun stories with some fun personalities, and then like people aren't clicking it. It becomes this weird kind of catch-22 where people don't click it because they're not interested in the personalities, but then they don't become interested in the personalities because they don't click it. So it's this kind of weird.
I somewhat agree.
thing.
Again, like laying the foundation for something like that, I think pays off a lot. I think they did a nice job of laying foundation for Surdy this week, so I do really appreciate that, and I do think that Surdy can be a great player within this league. But yeah, I want to, like, in order to have stuff like this pull off, you need to have a longer term vision or sight of this. And I think that when it does boil down to, all right, what are the nudges and jabs that we get in week to week, and then that's the topic, we really miss out on stuff like this. And I don't find that stuff nearly as interesting in the long haul. Yeah. And I think that people can get caught up in that. So I do agree, Travis. I think that some of it's TikTok brain, but also some of it's what we cater to. And I think catering to the longer, like the storylines that can pay off, that might be something that our caller is kind of missing right now, and stuff that I would love to build up. Because there are a lot of players and a lot of untold stories that I really enjoy, and are reasons that I root for people behind the scenes. I would Love to see some of those brought to the forefront. Masu is a great example of that. So yeah, I hope that we get more stuff like that.
Zoldyck, did you?
Surdy's a great story too. Outside of the achievements, if you want the full Surdy story too, I think that people would really, really get tired of that, and that's part of the reason why I know that Travis, you said that video was good. But yeah, I wish that LTA would push that, because that is a preview as to like what things could look like for Surdy. He's got a great story.
Zoldyck, did any of this help you become more interested?
Maybe a little. I think I do agree with you. There actually is probably a lot of stories in the LTA this year, but I think a lot of the stories are just like, Sven is trash talking, Whippo is trash talking, oh, Masu is performing well. And I think personally for me, those stories aren't really latching on to me. I think I want something with a little bit more personality besides just shit talking. So,
well, I will admit that, like, if you had said I too did, and it seemed pretty boring, I could get behind that, because we did just have 4 stops. So, like, that I think is I don't know if that factors into it at all, but like I can understand how a bunch of 2-0s that don't usually feel particularly close. I think there was maybe one game the whole weekend that was maybe remotely interesting. I think that might have been the bigger problem with this weekend, that I think. But I don't know. I'm not too worried about the players for the first time in a while. I do wish that we had a little bit more roster stability and player retention, but the top 2 teams keeping, or 3 teams of the top and keeping their rosters and lineups, I think was really cool. So thanks so much for calling in. Anything you want to shout out?
Shout out to you. I've been consuming your content for such a long time, and I really want to love the LTA. I have so many memories of LCS from when everything started to just a couple of years ago, and yeah, I want to keep watching it, but I just feel like it's been hard for me this year. So yeah, thank you for all the work that you're doing, and hopefully, maybe by the end of the season, I could call back and give you better news.
Zoldyck, let me ask you really quickly. Did you see my format video?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so can you tell me really briefly how the next 4 weeks of LTA work?
It's a double elimination bracket, top 4 make it to the cross conference, right?
Yeah. I just think we only have 3 days left of North American LTA before it becomes all together. So like I would stick around a little bit, because I do think this will get spicy faster than people expect. Like I think there will be some entertaining stuff that happens, and maybe some drama, and I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I think the fact that we have teams that are going to Brazil in like 3 weeks, and that's pretty crazy. So
I mean, I'll try to watch it, but I feel like maybe I'll just be honest here. Since I mentioned before, I'm a big fan of C9, so maybe them just not performing as well lately might be one of the reasons I'm not as interested anymore.
Yeah.
So,
well, Portillo is in the Twitch chat, and he's usually responsible for their performance, so you can feel free to take it up with him. Either way, thanks so much for the call, and we'll catch you next time.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Just to clarify, that's team performance within the LTA North, right? Nothing else?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
just making
exactly.
sure.
I think whenever people think, I know in the past we've had conversations where people were discussing how C9 social media impacted their performance. So I think it's in line with what
I thought this was how C9's team impacts the social performance.
Yeah. Yeah, something like that. Anyway.
Yeah.
We've got another caller, one more caller of the evening, I think. Unless things change.
I might pull one more, but we'll see.
Yeah. Feel free. By the way, if anybody's watching and you've tuned in recently, and you want to get on the show, we're gonna do one more pass on takes. So go put your takes into the Discord. You can do !! instructions if you'd like. That'll explain how it works. But also ! Discord. And by the way, our Discord's pretty poppin'. Feel free to go in there. We've got a bunch of different channels that people talk in. I'm active in the Magic the Gathering channel, for instance, the Nikkei channel, the general channel whenever people are talking about stuff. So it's pretty good time. Also, thank you to Snow Leopard for the $5 super chat that said forced trash talk is bad. There have been multiple times where they are put on the spot to trash talk. Let the players do it on their own if they want. I somewhat agree and disagree. I think that pro players can choose not to trash talk whenever somebody tries to bait them into it. I've certainly tried to bait pro players to trash talk in interviews, and they've dodged it before. So I don't think it's I think forced is a strong term here. All right, we got Director Donut here. Director Donut, where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Cedric. I'm calling from Houston, Texas.
Houston, Texas. What do you want to talk about on the show?
Alrighty, so I don't want to say an exactly opposite of the previous caller, but I was very excited for this previous weekend. Although the unfortunate structure of the bracket made it so the matches this first weekend were were incredibly one-sided and predictable and way less hype than it could have been. I was, however, very excited for the matchup specifically on the LTA South because the first match of the day and of the split was Loud versus Pain, which was a banger and like had been hyped up as two of like the biggest orgs in the South, like lots of fans, which you could see in the background every time they cut to the crowd and all this type of stuff. And the series very much lived up to the hype. And obviously I was also interested in watching it because it's the LTA South now. It's not just Brazil. They're part of our mega region. And previously, I mean, I'd watched a little bit, but not very much of CBLOL. Just a little bit when then there was the people talking about how hype it was and how it had growing viewership. I'd watched a couple games, but like I didn't watch it very much. So the previous factors I mentioned previously made me want to watch it this weekend.
Yeah, that was a good best of 3 too.
Do you, Cubby or Cedric, do you guys know why their bracket allowed for good matches so early? Because I would assume that they seed it the same way as us. So I assume one of those teams was like bad last year or something.
I'm not sure.
I don't think so. I don't think
maybe
either of them
somebody
were
in the chat
bad.
would know. Portillo, maybe it's time for you to step up and answer us as the Brazilian ambassador to our Twitch chat. But yeah, I am a little surprised at how they get like such good matches out the gate. But that is pretty high.
Loud was, I think, not great last year. They were out in playoffs early, so I think it just so happened to work that way.
Yeah,
if my research correct.
Maybe. Hopefully,
yeah. Loud were fourth, so even then, Pain were first.
Yeah.
But I guess they just ended up.
They just seeded it differently. Yeah.
I guess so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also in the North we had some weird seeding with LYON getting placed higher because of beating 100 Thieves and 100 Thieves beating C9, and so like maybe that also moved some teams around. Maybe that we could have had different matchups if the seeding had happened differently with the restructuring of the leagues. But watching the games for the South, like I said, definitely paid off, and they were very exciting.
How did
so I
you
definitely
watch
recommend
them?
people to check it out.
How did you like? Because obviously people are trying to figure out where to watch them and how to watch them. So
yeah, so I first went to Domstream because he was like the official.
Yeah, it appears that Dom is the official co-streamer for LTA South.
Yes.
And does have LTA North perms, but the way that was announced, it looks like you will be able to catch all LTA South games on Dom stream if there's no overlap. So that's the other thing. Like, I think that there might be overlap in the schedule between their games and the LTA North. And I don't know if Dom has to stream the LTA South games then too as a part of the deal. I'm not sure because that is a big deal to me.
I've heard that yes, in order to become like a co-streamer, I think even just for the LCS broadcast or LTA North broadcast, but presumably also for LTA Sul, which is I believe the way that's said, is you do have to commit to streaming a certain amount of the games. So I imagine that he's on the hook for it for at least
the way that they announced it like, and also the LCS is like hosting his co-stream before.
Yeah, their broadcast, they're like, it's not even a host. It's like they show it and then they're like, oh, you can go watch this.
The way they announced it, it definitely seems like he will be streaming all of it. I just don't know what happens when LTA North start, what he brings. And yes, for someone in chat, there is no official English broadcast for LTA South. There is an unofficial one. If you go to LTA South on Twitch, I recommend everyone in here follows because they have some casters that were covering CBLOL for the past few years. So they will have some expertise on that league as well. So if you want a more official experience,
what is it?
I like Dom. I think Dom has good opinions. I do.
I saw
but,
this over the weekend as well, so I'm trying.
Yeah,
to remember.
I bumped it because I've talked a lot about on here how I was bummed that there's no official broadcast. That'll be an unofficial, so it will be close. It'll be more of your standard traditional setup that you're used to.
Which is actually where I was gonna say. That's actually where I started at Dom's, but I'm not personally a big fan of Dom's
So
style.
you ended up
so
at the more official looking
yes,
broadcast?
which is actually where I was planning on ending up anyway. I just wanted to check out Dom's stream because when I did watch the couple games of CBLOL last year, I watched CBLOL English, which were the same people, I believe, or at least some of the same. And then I learned that they were going to be doing an unofficial. They wouldn't be official this year, but would still be doing it. It was actually an interview that David Shynock did with one of those casters. I forget what his name is. I think it's Henry or something along those lines. Yeah.
Good guy.
He did that interview, and they were talking about how Henrique was gonna continue. They were gonna continue doing it, and I was like, oh, that's really interesting because, I normally like more the traditional style of the broadcast, and so I
Good.
so wanted to
Yeah,
follow up with
Say it
them.
louder for Riot.
For those that just got slammed with music, that was me opening the LTA South Twitch channel and Twitch autoplaying the VOD. It's twitch.tv/LTA South. And yeah, I had seen this too, and I think it's interesting. It's funny because the about LTA South says this is the official English broadcast co-stream of LTA Seoul. So I don't know. It's interesting. This is the official English broadcast co-stream, but I thought Dom was the official English broadcast co-stream, so
it is. They're probably just trying to be official. But like the way that it was sold, yes, it is Dom. I don't think these guys are working with Riot at all.
Really? I
yeah.
am worried for their ability to continue streaming this because I think they were, when I opened it up, I thought that I would just see like them doing co-viewing, right? Which is where you see them talking over a thing, but like it looks as though they are just streaming the broadcast.
They have a clean feed. Yeah.
They have to be a co-streamer,
and then they have
right?
their own. It's muted, and then they have their own casters. So yeah.
Okay, but still, I don't know if you can like. I could not, for instance, go to Worlds. During Worlds, just turn on. I don't know what's going on there, but hopefully the LTA Seoul guys continue to be able to do that.
Maybe they're partnered with one of the Seoul teams or something as like
because the other way that you could co-stream, Travis. So like there are the official co-streamers, but I know that. Or not know. I believe each team in the league has a co-streaming spot that they get to give out. So like it was announced that Pobelter is the disguised co-streamer.
Yeah,
so
but you would think that this would say like we're the official partner of Loud or something like that. So I don't know what's going on here, but unfortunately Mark does listen to the show, and if something is not supposed to be going on, I worry for these folks. Mark,
we can just
cover your ears.
Maybe you can just cut that part out. And then that way they can stay like functioning.
Honestly, there's a chance he's watching right now.
It's not good. Yeah.
He messages me sometimes right afterwards and is like, "Travis, you gotta stop bitching all the time." All right. And I say, you gotta stop using gendered language, Mark. Director Donut, thanks so much for the call. Anything that you want to say here at the end? Anything you want to shout out?
Yeah, I have a few rapid fire. I wouldn't call them takes. They're just like follow up. So like last week I called in about Surdy and about him being a big factor for Dig versus TL. And while they definitely lost, I felt like he had a really good showing, and I thought that was really cool and exciting. I really liked the interviews in the fan areas that they did on broadcast this past weekend.
Thank you. I tweeted about that as well. That was really good. I love that because I feel like oftentimes people see the audience because everybody walks out to go grab a snack or something, and then it looks like it's dead, but it's really cool that they're doing it in the fan area.
Yeah. GA Atacon seems super broken in pro. And lastly, the overlapping streams of the LTA South, LEC, and LTA North was a lot happening all at once, and obviously with all of them being on the weekends it's going to happen, but it may contribute to viewership numbers or things with all of them especially like the ending and starting and stuff seemed all to be right about the same time. So
yeah, I mean I have a mixed opinion on the viewership. I do think that it was probably down overall this year, but I somewhat expected that because of the name change and all that type of thing. I'll tell you all that I went and played Magic at my game store a week ago, and I think it was probably on Thursday or something, and a person sat across from me who knew who I was, and we were playing, and I was like, you should watch this weekend, and they're like, LCS is starting. I was like, oh, LTA, and they're like, what is that? And I had to do the thing that I knew I would eventually have to do, which is be like, oh, okay, so there was LCS, and this is that still, but the Brazil. So I think there's they were always going to take a hit on this stuff whenever they did in the beginning, but I'm hoping by Split 2 things are in a better spot.
Yeah, and obviously with the best of 3, sometimes that makes the length of the broadcast be kind of weird. Because like, so we
Yeah.
had friends over for to like have a watch party, and I was like, well, you guys may be here till 9 p.m. or you may be out by like
Yeah.
5:30, and it was the 5:30 because the games were 2-0s and they were quick. So
Yeah.
obviously that affects like when things start and end as well, or not start,
mean-
but definitely end, but no overlapping. But
I've talked about that when it comes to best of 2s before, but I don't want to trigger Travis too much.
We got to move on. Hey, director, I'm sorry I
thank
kept
you,
interrupting.
yeah.
Anything else you want to shout out?
Just shout out my wife, and shout out you guys. So you guys have a great night.
Have a good one.
It's gone.
All right. It looks. Did we not get another
Do
caller?
you want me
Cubby?
to pull a line take? Like I can. But that's
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
one
I
thing
think
that people
we've
are
got
talking
time. We started a little late, so
All right,
if
let's do it.
anybody wants to take something, so
about. Yeah, I got one. Give me a sec.
okay, cool. Shout out to, I think I got Michio just in case, but Senpai Prime for the 21 months, Blicky Drip as well. If anybody else, I think I got, Bowen, thank you for the 500 bits. It was great seeing you this past weekend. George Zulu, JB. If anybody's watching right now and they would like to hover their cursor over the stream, you'll see on Twitch, you'll see a little purple crown will pop up. That'll let you know if you have a Prime sub available. Twitch hides that shit like crazy. They don't want to give us any more money. They're like, listen, we need all that for AI and Bezos rockets. And so it's your duty to try to make sure that some of that money comes here instead. You don't want to give that to those guys. Hey, Mr. Brando, thank you for the Prime sub. That worked. Okay, Gia Monster is here. Gia, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from San Francisco, California.
San Francisco, California. What do you want to talk about on the show?
My take is that LYON is going to get demolished this upcoming weekend. They're the only losing team who didn't look even remotely good, despite their team mostly being here. So they don't have the excuse of having subs. All they had was one player who was remote. And
I mean, that's a big deal, right?
that is a big deal, but I don't have the same faith in them that the team might be revitalized if one of the players now comes back and they don't have a sub the way I do for the other teams. And they didn't look remotely competitive, so unlike Disguised, who I thought had good early games.
I think, did anybody else see this? I'm pretty sure Spica on stream went to, did he message Licorice, or who was it that he messaged and was asking about? Maybe I'm getting this mixed up, but I thought
I
thought we'd heard they only had like 4 days of scrims.
It was on broadcast, and LYON has only had a couple days of scrims.
Yeah.
I know that Spica was doing some generational Sven hating on his stream, which is pretty funny.
Dude, that was that's a story we should have brought up. I know you hate trash talk. This will be my new meme for the show. Anytime trash talk happens,
I'm saying that it was
pretty
funny. But that was unique. We're dropping notes about why we hate a player and then hate watching on purpose.
Yeah. If anybody hasn't seen those Spica clips where he's got a notepad open and he's listing out all the reasons he hates Sven, highly recommend. Good content. But okay, so LYON is, you think they're going to be the bottom tier team, maybe?
Yeah, I think they'll be the worst team in the league. I think they'll finish last next split as well.
Okay. And that's just because of the players, or what overall leads you to think that they're going to be consistently bad for so long?
Well, it's a combination of things. I think, first of all, like I said, they didn't look like they had a good first showing. Both C9 games were incredibly quick and dominant. Every other team at least showed a little bit of life, in my opinion. I think as well, the one big thing that I thought LYON would have as an advantage is that a lot of people were saying that Saint was really good, and that there were a lot of question marks about why he was picked over Loki. But I think Loki absolutely blasted Saint, and so the one big bright spot that I had for LYON, which was this possible upcoming talent in Saint, I don't really think that he's shown that he's going to pan out. Because of that, I really think that if I had to, place a bet on which team was going to be last, I would pick LYON.
As someone who did rank LYON last in their own power rankings, I will say I thought the Saint actually outperformed Loki in game 2. I watched live and went over it. Loki hit one really good fight early as Yone around bot Tribrush, where he made a really good snap decision and got a free double. But had a couple fights where Loki didn't burn his R or just was in fights at wrong time or not following it up. I thought Saint actually played better in game 2. My concerns with LYON actually mostly lied with LYONs. I just wasn't sold on his Worlds run, and I know that he's remote and playing with ping, but I think that he's a weak support and one of the weaker players that I've seen in LTA. Actually, I know it's an early sample size, but I've seen some more tape. Like I'm just not sold on LYONs. I think that LYON as a team, if I were building that team, I would not have taken import AD and native support. I would have taken import support and native AD and tried to get a Sayo or something, because I know that they have 2 LAN players for a requirement based on their region. So I didn't exactly agree with the build, and I ranked them last because I was concerned about Odie and LYONs working together as a duo compared to the rest of the league, when I really feel like, especially with just adding more objectives and how figured out objective setups, like just how that part of the game has grown. If you can't do that, you're going to struggle, and I thought the LYONs would struggle with that. That said, I think Saint was a good pickup for this team. I'm in on Saint. I really am. It's just that the rest of the roster I'm not as sold on, and Licorice for me is he didn't have a great one game against Thanatos. The other game I thought he was okay on the Poppy, so his game 1 wasn't great. But Licorice still does a lot of things well in fights, and like will get to the right spot and play the fights well. It's just that mechanically, again, lane doesn't always get there anymore as frequently as he did when he was with Golden Guardians. And I think laning better and playing better at that part of the game. So it's not like I'm super low on this team, but I mean, I did rank them last, right? But for me, it's mostly just the jungle support and some concerns there.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be so weird because with teams like LYON, Disguise, Dig, we're going to watch them play for a very short window of time before we don't see them play again for like 2 months.
I mean, Dig's at least going to play 2 more series, so that's good.
Yeah. But
they're winning,
Yeah, that's okay. Hey, I was the Dig defender last week's episode, so
I had Dig ranked the highest out of the bottom, and I actually still feel that they're the most likely to compete with the teams that won after week 1. I really like. I mean, again, I've seen a lot of Sturdy tape, and I feel pretty good about him as a player. Like I predicted he would be a top laner as a rook in the LCS on a team that I didn't predict to be top half. So, and yeah, I thought that Sturdy actually had a really good debut on 2 champs that he doesn't usually play. So I think that we might see. I think that Dig will win next week, and then we'll see if Dig can do anything else. But
yeah, I just think it's going to be fascinating to see how these teams change over the course of the break. And I'm a little worried for them, but I know we've seen this with LEC before. But it is pretty brutal. It's very cutthroat. It's if you're a bad team, we don't see very much of you. So, I don't know. In terms of LYON, yeah, I mean, I think that's basically where I have them, is they're going to be largely irrelevant for the next couple of months of this year, and then we'll see what happens to them in Split 2. I do think that we're going to probably see some of the painful stuff that happened in LEC, where there are roster changes that occur after a couple of matches, which is pretty brutal. But I don't know. I guess this is kind of where we're at now, and we'll see if they can get it together. But I don't know. I'm not sure if I would pick on LYON more than I'd pick on some of these other teams.
I do have one other thing.
Yeah.
I also think the quality of opponent speaks to the match. I think that everyone's going to have FlyQuest rated a lot higher. They didn't change any of their players as well, and they took some time off, so they weren't immediately scrimming. Whereas with Cloud9, you have, Blabber, he gave an interview where he was saying, he kind of feels like the team is, pretty new and changed. And so I think that as well, LYON played what I think is largely considered to be a weaker opponent than what SR faced. And so I'd be interested to hear what you guys think about how relevant something like strength of opponent is for looking at the next match.
I mean, I think SR played the strongest team, like what I expect to be the strongest team, but I don't think that changes the fact that SR played poorly. I mean, there were some pretty poor moments in there, and I think that if people go back and watch the tape, I thought B-Boy had a really poor series too. I know that most people are focusing on the new parts of that, but I actually thought that B-Boy played really poorly in that series, so that is also for me a bit of a concern. I don't know, the SR games just weren't interesting because each game they got outscaled, and each game they tried like the first 2-3 plays, they didn't go their way, and like the game was just flipping over. I think my concern for SR and just why I had them ranked lower is that I didn't have as much faith in Fudge and Palafox to return to form as others do, and if so, that might take some time. And I don't know. I mean, we don't see the full roster for them yet either, but I favor SR going into that. I think the Contracts is going to be that team salvation if they have any. So I do think really highly of Contracts as a player still, and thought that he was probably their strongest performer. But yeah, they struggled. I mean, Skarner lost, so that's not good. It was a good game plan into Skarner, so I'm glad that FlyQuest left it up and actually played into it. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with Cubby here. We'll see what happens, but I don't know. It's such a weird format in terms of who plays who and how things work, especially in a league right now where there's just this much skill disparity between the teams. So
yeah, I mean, it really feels like an F1 paddock right now.
And that's exactly what I was thinking, Cubby. I was like, this feels like an F1 paddock, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you got teams at the top of the paddock and teams below, and the cars below just have no chance keeping up with the teams at the top. It really feels that way.
It's like those guys are Kelby's 1994 Honda Civic, and it's just there's no chance. All right. Thanks so much, Gia Monster. Anything you want to shout out?
Just want to shout out the show. Big fan.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for calling in. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Have a good one.
All right. Now that we're towards the end of the show and I see Captain Flyers in chat, I wanted to create a poll in Twitch chat. He and I were talking about Hotline Love, and Valentine's Day is coming up, and we were having a discussion. I won't say who agreed with what, but one of us felt as though it was reasonable to try to do Hotline Love next week, which is a full week before Valentine's Day, because then you'd give people some time to get ready for it. And the other one felt like it was not
into action all the advice that you're going to get from that show. You got a week to seal the deal.
That was my thing that I had heard one of the two of us say. I won't say who said that I heard, but there's a poll up now in chat to say, is Hotline League next week too early, or is it something that could have that if we couldn't do it the week of Hotline Love or the week of Valentine's Day Hotline Love, that we should just ever do it, I'm just kind of curious what people think. So there's a poll up in chat if we get some more votes going in. But yeah, I think the reality is a lot of people don't know what Hotline Love is, but Hotline Love is a thing that I did probably 4 years ago, where we had callers call in on a Hotline League-esque thing and give relationship advice. Captain Flyers has campaigned for years for this to come back, and I am, I would be open to it if people were interested. But yeah, if Mark told everyone to stay home and eat spaghetti and watch TV, yeah, that sounds about right. Either way, I'm just gonna say, so it looks like overwhelmingly people think Hotline Love next week is not too early, and that we could do Hotline Love next week if we wanted to. So I don't know. I'll have to talk to Captain Flowers, because I think it would be really fun to do that, and that's my public stance on bringing back Hotline Love next week for once. So we'll see.
I would love to do it. I don't know if you have me in the lineup for this one, but I think it's fun.
I originally had, I think I talked to you about this at my birthday last year. That's how it's almost been.
Yeah, because I know that there was another guest that was potentially going to join.
And I
We were
talked to
gonna-
her about it, and she had said that she's a current League of Legends personality, and she had said she was open to it. Now I haven't talked to her about doing it this year, but I won't
She'd
do
be
it.
awesome.
I won't do it if we can't have Captain Flowers, because that man, he knows more about love than anyone I know, and I feel like if you can't have him dispensing advice, then that would that would be unfortunate. It would not be worth doing it. So if we can't have Captain Flowers, I wouldn't do that. Okay, Cubby, Captain Flowers says you have to be in it. So I guess it sounds like Captain Flowers must be down, because he's already speculating as to who an additional guest would be. So we got to see what's up. Hopefully we can do this. All right, that is the show. I do want to shout out that I will be at MagicCon Chicago in less than a month. I will be at MagicCon Chicago, so please come say hi to me if you're going to Chicago. You can join the Discord if you want to try to catch Commander games with me. I'll be talking about my schedule in the Magic the Gathering chat there, but I don't have any events planned right now for it during the day. I'm not joining any of the sign-up events or anything like that, so I'll mostly be playing Commander and hanging out with friends. So if you want to come do that could be cool. Also, yeah, what do you want to shout out, Cubby?
Shout out to everyone that tuned into the power rankings video on Travis's channel. Thank you. I know I said it at the start of the episode, but thank you again. Follow me everywhere at CubbyXX. I have VOD reviews going up on my YouTube right now. I did those with Kangas. Shout out to him on his first week of LTA North. Well deserved. I also did a show with Razvan. Razvan was an old LCS coach, and also a top lane specialist in this case. We went through a very condensed version of like what we took the process that an LTA org uses to scout players, condensed it significantly, and then did that to rate players. It ended up in an hour and 45-minute episode about top lane. We go through a lot of tape, draw on the screen, talk about it, and then come to conclusions. If that sounds interesting to you, that's also on my channel, and it's gotten a decent reception so far. And we'll have more on that. So shout out to Razvan, and then the people on his team that's helping with the art for that, which is nice. Besides that, glad that the games are back. It was fun, and excited for next week, and hopefully we actually get a real upset. And yeah.
Please
Besides that, shout out Josh Allen.
Please go watch the surprise test that I did. It is really, really funny. I know that the title on YouTube is not that great. I don't have a better idea for it. So please go watch it, because it deserves more love and attention than it has gotten. Other than that, interviews will be up on the channel this week that I did. I'll be going to one of the days this weekend at LTA. I kind of want to see if I can find a closet to do interviews in, because I've never done a interview, or I've never been there to do coverage during closet days. Normally I just skip the closet days because I'm like, I want to be there whenever they're in the arena, but LTA is in the closet this weekend, and so I want to see if I can find like, oh hey, I'm here with so and so. I need to find like a closet that has like jackets or something hanging, and we can be kind of fun. So I'll be doing that this weekend as well. But other than that, thanks everyone for watching. This one was a really fun one, and who needs a pro player guest? Because we can always make it a banger, because Cubby and I can just scream at each other. Goodbye.
Yeah, we disagreed.